Hey everybody, welcome to American Idol Unaired. I'm your host, Bennett Shear, and joining me again today is a really good friend of mine who I had on 2 episodes ago, a guest co-host. Please welcome Mikhail.
Hey guys, it's really great to be back. Bennett, I'm a fan of the show, so it's an honor to be on here and help pick the minds of great artists.
Dude, really stoked to have you back. Last time we talked to Cadence Baker, who was an aired exception. Aired exceptions, by the way, are contestants who were aired on the show. Aired exceptions, by the way, are contestants who were aired on the show. A lot of contestants that we interview were not shown on American Idol, but it's really still fun to talk to contestants who were seen because they still have a lot of stories about things going on behind the scenes, moments that were still not shown with judges' comments, performances, things like that. So before we talk about today's guest, I want to tell you guys about a new podcast that I'm launching this Thursday, January 19th. It is called The Artist Exchange. And, I have a lot of fun talking to the Idol contestants, so much so that I really started to enjoy hearing them talk about other artists, the camaraderie that they had with other contestants on American Idol, how they would uplift each other. It was really inspiring to me. And so I thought, wouldn't it be cool to bring two artists together on one podcast? And so the Artist Exchange was born. And basically, every episode, we've got two artists on one podcast coming together to talk about anything and everything music. So writing, recording, performing, their process, their careers, highs and lows, anything. So this first episode's coming out this Thursday, January 19th, my birthday. I couldn't help it. I wanted to birth the podcast on my birthday. If you want to get me a little something, you guys can share the podcast, tell a friend to listen. And then if you want to listen too, I guess, I don't know. Is that too much to ask?
No, it's not too much to ask.
Yeah, so Mikhail, it was honestly really fun. I recorded the first episode already. If you guys have not heard, I did an episode of Idol Unaired with Grace Pearman. She was not aired on American Idol, but she's an insane vocalist. She is so cool. She is so kind. She's hilarious. And she brought her friend Nico Cardoso. They both met at Berklee College of Music and they became really close friends. They both talked a lot about what they've learned from each other. They both performed. I think it was so fun for me to just kind of sit back and listen to them. So the Artist Exchange, the first episode drops this Thursday, January 19th. So you can follow Artist Exchange podcast on Instagram and TikTok. Any thoughts about the Artist Exchange, Mikhail?
I love the idea because I know how I am with my music friends. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they bounce off each other and feed off each other's energy.
Yeah, no, it was really cool to meet Nico and to see Grace again. So, like I said, I know I've said it a lot, but check that out this Thursday, January 19th. All right, now back to American Idol Unaired. Today's guest is another aired exception from the show. Sage made the top 20 on season 20 of American Idol. Mikhail, what are your thoughts on Sage?
I'm a fan. I love her energy and her personality, and I really appreciate how she doesn't try and be like any other singer. I can tell that she's really just being herself, even from her choices with her runs and her tone and her phrasing. So I'm really excited to talk to her and pick her mind.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. So, look, without further ado, let's welcome Sage.
Hi. Hi, guys.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Great, Mikhail.
Doing well. Well,
How's your day been? How are you? It's been a little while since the show. So overall, I mean, we're in a new year. Like, how's everything going?
Everything's going really well. As of recent, I'm a nanny. So that was one thing that I had done before the show. And I still nanny for those kiddos. So I see them pretty often. And then when I'm not nannying, I go into the studio and I'm trying to record a bunch of new songs. So hopefully some new stuff will be put out soon. So that's kind of what I've been doing as of recent.
Obviously, going back way before American Idol, I'm really curious about, the process before going on the show and kind of falling into music and contestants talk about their story on the show and what got them into it. But I want to dive into a little bit about your story as far as how you became interested in playing and all of that.
Yeah. So from a very young age, I was pretty exposed to music since my dad grew up in New Orleans. It's like one of the music capitals of the world, I feel like. So he was an amazing guitar player, still is. And from a very young age, yeah, he kind of introduced me to a lot of different music. And from there, I just had this found love. And then I kind of started writing on my own. Once I got into like freshman year, I started writing on my own because it would just be constant hearing my dad play these beautiful songs that nobody's ever heard before. So I was like, well, why not me write words to them? Because he doesn't really write songs like that anymore. So yeah, we just kind of started writing songs together. And then once we did that, he was really adamant and is basically my biggest supporter besides my mother as well. Who was just kind of like, you have a sound, you have something to say. I think you should really, put the pedal to the metal and try to do this thing. And so after that, I'd kind of had a little more confidence in myself. In high school, I was in show choir, and it was a pretty big deal at my high school. And so we would constantly be traveling to like nationals and different places to be competing. So I was a main soloist in that. And then there was a bunch of competitions that we had done in high school. So I won those as well, called Spotlight, which is an amazing foundation. So if you're in the Southern California area, definitely try to do Spotlight. It's amazing. So I won that my senior year, which gave me a lot of publicity. I think that was one of the main reasons why Idol had found me in the first place. And then another competition that I'd won like my freshman year going in college, going into like sophomore year, I won Young Arts, the National Young Arts Foundation, which like Timothy Chalamet has won and like Nicki Minaj has won. So it was a very, very big foundation. And once I won that, I did huge performances at Walt Disney Concert Hall, and I performed at the New World Center in Miami. So that kind of recognition, I think, got me in front of Idol. And then immediately after that, I had gotten reached out to, and kind of like everybody, I thought it wasn't real. So I didn't respond. And then they like kept calling, and I was like, okay, the spam number has called like 15 times. Maybe it's like a relative that changed their number or something that I'm unaware of. So I answer, and that was, the show being like, hi, like, would you like to audition for the 20th season of Idol? And I was like, sure. What do I have to do?
That's such a cool, awesome, impressive list of things that you've done. I ought to wonder, like you said, so many people wondered if it was a joke when they got reached out to. But when you do so many things like that, and you kind of go through the motions of having these experiences, doing other competitions, and then you get the Idol offer, it's different. It's on TV, but do you, in a way, sort of approach it the same way where you're like, okay, I've done show choir, I've done young arts, this is just another competition, or is Idol different? And if so, how?
I do feel like my background in show choir and my background in those competitions, constantly being surrounded by incredibly talented people, I think it did set me up really well. I think the main difference that I had kind of realized is when you're doing competitions in high school and when you're in show choir in high school or in college, a lot of people that are doing it don't necessarily, it's not like their whole life. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they wouldn't drop every single thing in their life to do that one thing. It's kind of like, well, I want to do science, but choir is really fun and all my friends are in it. So I'm going to go do that too, because I get to travel and hang out with my buds. But once I got onto Idol, it was a different ball game because it was everybody is competing for the same dream. Like we all have the same aspirations and the same goals. So, regardless of what happened on the show, we all just want the love and appreciation of those who are willing enough to listen to the music.
Do you think your past experience with competing in different competitions and even winning, do you feel like that helped you be relaxed while performing in front of the celebrity judges?
So the first time you see them, you kind of do get taken aback because your just nerves are so high, like you can't even imagine. I like completely blacked out in my first audition. So I really have no memory of it besides what was shown on TV. So I think, yeah, it definitely did help having that experience. But at the same time, I mean, when you're dealing with, massive mega stars and then live television comes into play, those are two like completely different things that I was not used to and not necessarily comfortable with. But I think that was the most fun part, was just kind of having a show push you out of your comfort zone and really force you to be the best version of yourself and really put your all out there so you can be a actual competitor.
Let's go back to before we even get to the judges, just going on the Zoom. I think you were approached, right? So what was that like to start the process of even before you get to the judges?
Yeah, so I think originally I had gotten a DM from one of the casting producers. And then I like didn't think it was real. You get those all the time. You're like, I don't know what company this is. So I just thought it wasn't real. And then they started calling me. And once I finally said yes and I figured out what was going on, there was about like 2 or 3 Zooms, 2 of which where I was actually singing songs and kind of workshopping different songs that I could potentially sing on the show. And then one was just kind of like them getting to know me and my story. I think they were trying to get a feel for who I was so that they could figure out what role I was going to play in the show.
I would love to hear about those songs that you played, or just kind of overall the discussions when it came to whether it is more of the story or even just kind of who you are as an artist, what those calls were like.
The workshopping calls, we had kind of just been bouncing a bunch of songs back and forth. I'd sung like Benny and the Jets, the Haley Reinhart version. She was a contestant on the show a while back who actually came and was our mentor, and she was so sweet. But I wanted to sing her version of Benny and the Jets. And they were just like, I don't know, like try to do something a little more you. And I was like, okay, well, let me do one of my original songs. And they were like, well, that usually doesn't really work. Like the likelihood of you getting a yes with a song that they have absolutely no idea what it's about or who it's by or anything about it, it's probably not going to work in your favor. And I was just kind of like, well, if I'm going to get a yes or, go to Hollywood and get the golden ticket, I'd rather be doing like 100% myself, and see if that actually gets me through the door. And that's exactly what I did. So I was really happy that the original song that I had picked showed off my voice enough to where they understood what kind of singer I was, but also what kind of person I was and what kind of message I was trying to send.
Once you got picked to go to the auditions, walking onto the set, I feel like that's a whole nother experience, because it's one thing to talk about doing something, then to actually go and be able to do it. It's like a whole nother world being in the television set and having that whole experience start from there.
Yeah, it was definitely different for me. And I think for a lot of people that live in California or live in LA, because it wasn't like you were traveling and you were like in a completely different area where you were really, it was all really new and foreign, and you could kind of soak in that and just be like, okay, well, this is all a new experience for me. For me, it was like, oh, like my friend lives 3 blocks down from this hotel that we're staying at. And like, I have my car, I can go back home if I want to, if I forgot a shirt or an outfit or something, I could just go home and wash it, or pick something new. Because that was one thing that they don't tell you, is the outfit that you wear in your first audition, you wear for 7 days. 7 full days, you wear the exact same outfit. And a lot of people don't have the luxury of driving 20 minutes home to go wash their, stinky outfit that they've been wearing for 3 days in the sun. So I was lucky for that. So it definitely put me in a different mindset, because I was in my backyard, it was my home. But at the same time, it was such a foreign experience, and just meeting a bunch of people that, weren't from there, and their stories and what they were singing and how they got there. It was really interesting. It was great.
Who did you kind of click with when you got to the auditions? Who did you meet right away?
Danielle Finn, who ended up being my duet partner, I was like talking to my dad and like a group of people, because, everybody just kind of sits down and you listen to somebody talk and then you share something. So I was just like talking, and Danielle came over to me and she goes, I don't know if this is going to come off as weird, but did you win Spotlight like 2 years ago? And I was like, yeah, I did. She was like, I went and saw you perform at Walt Disney Concert Hall. And I was like, what? That's insane. Like, that's so cool. And so we kind of talked about it. And she was a senior in high school at the time. So she was applying for all of those programs and stuff. So I kind of helped her in that respect. So that was really cool. And then I met Yoli Mayor, who was amazing. I love her so much. Oh, I met Dan Marshall and his girlfriend, Allison. I had met them both at the auditions.
Is Allison auditioning, or is she just there to hang out with
No,
Dan?
she was just, I think like she was just there for support.
I imagine you guys got like close pretty fast because you're spending so much time with each other.
Yeah, it was like unwillingly close. We're all just constantly being forced to be around each other. And luckily, everybody, like I said, kind of has the same aspirations and the same goals. So, you're not really meeting people that you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. There was a lot of people that you could really relate to. And yeah, you really do get close. I mean, by the time we were at Hollywood Week, basically doing duet rounds, everybody was really close. Just everyone was so sweet and just really willing to put their all into this competition. And I think that's why it made it such an amazing season to watch.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's almost like the antithesis of a competition, because people didn't think of it like they were competing. It was like, we're all just here. Yes, we're here to further our music careers, but it was really something that was so unified. And your season in particular, nothing like it, I don't think, in Idol's history. And I don't know if there ever will be, frankly, another season.
Yeah, I think once you start to realize that art is so subjective, and regardless of how perfect you are or non-perfect you are, somebody's going to love you and somebody's going to hate you. So it's realizing that what you do and the best that you can do is going to be the only thing to progress you further in the competition. So I think that was just the consensus that everybody had, was we're all here for the same thing. We all want to do the best that we can, and we're all going to try our hardest.
Yeah, I mean, I could tell that you guys were all just friends just from watching the lives. You guys were having so much fun, just jamming out, laughing. Like if it really looked like a family.
I mean, once we got to like top 23, that was when everybody got really close. And it was like every single cut after that point was just gut wrenching. And it was kind of like, we're in Hawaii, let's have fun. Or, you know, I get the chance to sing in front of these judges again, or be on live television. So it was really fun. There was a really great sense of camaraderie. And yeah, I've made some lifelong best friends that I'm forever grateful for. So
Hawaii was like your chance to kind of travel a little bit because you're just at home this whole time.
I know. And when I started the show, when I had first auditioned, because it was like a 9-month process that we're doing all this stuff. So when I had first auditioned, I was 20. And then by the time we went to Hawaii in like February, I was 21. So I was like, woohoo! So I got to have little pina coladas and, you know, have some fun there. So I was like, I get a free vacation and I get to drink. This is awesome. But yeah, it was an amazing time. I think Hawaii was, I think everybody would say it was probably their favorite time, just because it was fun and there's no hard feelings. And it was the last like pre-recorded stuff before, you know, the red lights on, tense up.
Who was your mentor in Hawaii?
I had Mike and Antonio, and I loved them with all my hearts. They quickly became my therapists. But they're two lovely, lovely men who really, really helped me throughout the entire process, and really were the ones in my corner saying, you know, be who you are, do songs that you want to do, regardless of whether they're like, you know, top, you know, 100 hits or whatever. Because a lot of the songs that I did were songs that I really resonated with, rather than songs that were good for the show or good for the competition, or, you know, because that's mainly what you talk about when you're choosing songs. It's like, well, what's going to get you more votes? You know, what's going to react to the audience? And it's like, if I'm not feeling the song, I have no idea how they're going to be able to feel it. So I don't want to be singing something that I have no connection with or correlation with or like bond with.
Mikhail, this is reminding me when we were talking to Cadence and you were asking her about the role that the vocal coaches played and if how much of it was, you know, the singing versus like the therapeutic elements. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I was asking her basically how much of the vocal coaching session was more just counseling and just psychological relief versus actual vocal technique.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, because I think for each contestant, it might be a little different, but the way that you rehearse your songs is you pick your song basically like a week in advance. And then you have that week up until like the weekend to where we film it live, or to where you just film it. For like the first 1 or 2 like vocal rehearsals, I am like full blown work mode, like get every single note perfect, figure out the key, figure out phrasing, figure out breathing, like do all of that stuff. And then the next like 4 or 3 rehearsals, it's just kind of like, so how are you guys? Or like, you know, so what's going on with you guys today? Or this is what's happening with me. Or I woke up and I had this kind of funny feeling in my throat. What do I do about that? So yeah, it was a lot of conversation and a lot of getting to know. And I was paired with the best vocal coaches that I could have been paired with, because they really did a good job of playing like good cop, bad cop, which is ironic because you don't think that you would necessarily want that, but you do. And especially me, I'm a perfectionist type of person. So I want people to be honest, even if it's not necessarily what I want to hear. So like, your pitch is a little off, or that riff just doesn't work, or whatever. So I was really lucky to be placed with them as my vocal coaches, but it definitely was like 75% therapy, like the rest actually singing, you know?
Yeah.
That's interesting to hear because, you know, it's those days leading up to filming. And frankly, you know, most of the time that you're there isn't on camera because you're it's the pre-recorded stuff where you're there for hours every day. And then the live shows, it's like a 2-hour broadcast. But think of all the time that's spent either in rehearsal or just downtime with the contestants. We don't really see most of your experience. What we see on TV is just a blip of your time on the set, you know?
Yeah. And I think that was a main thing for me because a lot of my, even my first audition, a lot of it wasn't really shown. And then into Hollywood Week, I really only had one, maybe two-ish performances shown. So coming into top 24, I was pretty scared. And I think my Hawaii performance was really the only one that was a strategic like play or move or song choice. Because I was realizing like, okay, if I haven't been necessarily shown as some of these other contestants, they're going to be so much more connected with the ones that they've seen more of, just because they've seen them more, because they know their face more. When you're watching, 6, 7 episodes of 25 people in each one, you're not remembering every single person. So I was pretty nervous. So I think that was when it came into play of asking my vocal coaches like, hey, I have these 2 songs. I have this one obscure song that's really up my alley and, kind of what I continue to do after Hawaii. Or I have Jolene, which is one of the biggest songs in the United States of America, one of the most covered songs. It's Dolly Parton. Like everybody loves it. Like, come on. So I was just like, okay, I guess I'm doing a country song. Like, that's it, And I think that was my biggest and like best move that I had done in the show.
People really saw you, even though they didn't get as much airtime from you in auditions or Hollywood, making it through the 24 and then the 20. I feel like people kept talking about you. I specifically remember Clark Beckham because we're both fans of Clark Beckham's videos and him talking so much about you and just the Idol fans in general and seeing everybody's comments online. It's almost like maybe it doesn't matter how much airtime one person gets versus the other. Once they hear you sing, once you have that moment, like you said, you really stood out. You picked a song that made sense for you.
Yeah. And I think that's a main point that the Idol team and production really pushes is like, no one's going to care who you are if you are not yourself. And it's so true because it's like, with the little blips that I had up until top 24, I did have enough of a following to take me into another round, to make sure that I'm, insured for another 2 rounds after that, to be able to at least sing. So I felt extremely lucky. Clark is such a great guy. I mean, we had done a Idol like hometown tour when he was out here in LA, and him and his wife are just the sweetest people ever. And then we hung out with Lewis Knight and Wyatt, who was from, I think he was like from 2 seasons ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I don't know if you guys watched that, but we met all of them. It was so fun. Yeah, Clark is a great guy, and he was so sweet to me when I was on the show, because you definitely do hear a lot of mixed reviews and people have a lot to say about what you're doing and what you're wearing and how you're singing, and so it's nice to have some people just be like, hey, good job.
But isn't he so fair? Because it's like he's on your side and yet he's not afraid to be honest. And in a way that I think is so encouraging and uplifting, but yet not mean. It's just it's fair. It's real.
Yeah, I think it all comes from like how you're saying it and what your intention is behind what you're saying. If you're coming across as just like you want to be mean and like you want to just be like an asshole, be like, you suck, this sucked. Okay, that's your choice. But like, it's not necessarily going to help me. Probably still going to make the same choice I did. But if you say something like, hey, your voice really resonates at that one part. I just think maybe if you hold that out longer, if you do this a little more, it would do the song better. And I think that's where intention really comes into play. So with Clark's intention, for me, at least, it was always very pure and honest. So I appreciated that.
You talked about runs earlier, and I just wanted to address something. That one, first of all, your vocal agility is nuts. But to me, I'm like a nerd when it comes to the choices other people make creatively. Oh, now I made up another word, creatively. Because you can know how to move your voice, but that doesn't mean you know where to go or how to get there even. So I really appreciate your choices, and I can tell that you have an excellent ear. And so
Thank you.
I don't know if anyone's told you that recently, but I'm just listening to you sing. I'm like, wow, I would have never even thought to go there, to do that interval. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. I think that's where, like what I was saying, when the first 2 vocal rehearsals with your vocal coaches, you're kind of really putting in the work to make sure all those little fine tuning moments are there, because once you do that, it gives you more room to play. And I think improvisation is something that is so important in singing. Like if you can't figure out how to improvise with, certain chords and stuff like that, I think your limitations are just so small, because you just have no playroom. It's like only having the primary colors rather than being like, but if I mix this and this, then I can get purple and green and orange. And, so I think improvisation is probably one of my favorite things to do. And so coming up with really interesting riffs and stuff is something I really pride myself in. So I appreciate you taking the time to say that to me.
It really is a pleasure to talk to you guys, because as fans of music, connecting with artists is really special, because, it's one thing to be on a television show and to see people, and there's a lot of TV shows out there, but
Mhm.
this is a show about music and the artists, and artists bring something that is so unique and so special. You guys have a message to share, whether it's originals that you compose or it's covers that you're kind of interpreting in your own way. It touches people. And so I feel like to get to hear more about your process is really cool and really special. And then people that are listening to this conversation who are also fans of yours, they get something out of that, I think. And I think that, it's, for me, it's really an honor to get to talk to you and to get to hear more about what you do, why you do it. So,
Well, I mean, I speak for myself and probably for a lot of the other contestants, like having people that really appreciate the show and appreciate what we do outside of the show. Because a lot of times when you do something like this, it's so often that people just forget about you because they think of you as like a TV character rather than like, no, this is a reality show. We are the way we are on TV outside in real life. So having people actually take the time to be like, hey, what you did on the show was really cool, or, it impacted me in, this huge way, or this even small little minuscule way. I think that's been the coolest part, and to meet a bunch of people after the show. And yeah, it's been really it's been really nice. I think the whole like audience of American Idol is just a bunch of sweethearts.
is it crazy to be on national TV and then like be on the internet and have videos with all these views and then people come up to you? Is that an adjustment?
Yeah, so I did not prepare myself to be in the airport. Like, oh my gosh. I think I'm jaded in the respect that like I live in Los Angeles. Your next door neighbor has probably been on a few seasons of, whatever ABC show or CBS, or they've been on a movie, or they know Brad Pitt or whatever. So it's a very like normalized thing in LA. So I wasn't expecting myself to go out and like get a coffee and have all these people know who I am, because it's just not how life is out here. But I went to the airport and oh my goodness, I had to like literally put on a hat from my carry-on and like try to hide because I had like no makeup on. Everybody's asking me for pictures and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like the worst time for me right now. I just gotten eliminated. So it was like the blues are definitely in my heart. And yeah, it was just crazy. But I felt really loved, and it was a nice way to kind of come off the show and be like, hey, people did actually see me for who I am, and they care and they want to come up and say hi and have a picture. So it was really cool.
Yeah. Any thoughts on like the process of sort of, I know we talk about adjustment as far as getting used to people knowing who you are, but I mean, how are you feeling? I mean, was it an emotional adjustment? Was it a quick adjustment after you got voted off?
I had so much like pent up adrenaline that I didn't really know like what to do with it. So immediately after the show, I went and sung for my cousin's wedding. And then I had come back and was just like, okay, I need to go and gig everywhere. So I just started booking a bunch of gig times and songwriting times to kind of go in and show myself. And it worked out in my advantage. I was really lucky to be able to kind of play all around LA and meet some really cool people that have helped me perform at really great places and really great venues. So I think that's like what I did after the show. I know a lot of people are different. A lot of people just kind of laid in their bed for months. I was like, I have to put all this energy somewhere. And all of these songs, another thing that they don't tell you on Idol is like, they preface you 3 rounds before the round that you're actually doing. So when we were doing, Hawaii, we're figuring out what our, next song is going to be for this. And then what's our Disney song going to be, and what's our Mother's Day song going to be, and what's our this song. And then you realize like, oh my God, I'm eliminated, but I had 4 songs fully ready to go and fully ready to like sing and perform and do this. So I was like, okay, well, what do I do with this now? Go and perform it at bars and clubs and, you know, stuff like that. So it's been great. I've been very fortunate and very lucky to have a very good friend base and a fan base that kind of supports me anywhere I go.
I guess did they probably have to get the songs clear? That's why they need so much time, I'm guessing.
Yes, yes, that, and also just like they want you to be prepared, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, mostly clearing.
Did you ever have any moments where you like doubted a song last minute or even changed a song that we didn't know about? I'm curious if it was smooth sailing the entire way or if there were ever any bumps in the road.
Yeah, so for Rhiannon, that was my least favorite performance. But also it was the most stressful because like 3 days before that, I hadn't even finalized my song yet. I was gonna do Rita Is Gone by the Marcus King Band, who's also like a crazy, like raspy singer. And then I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do Edge of 17. And then that was the round that Nicolina was like, well, I'm going to do Edge of 17. So I was kind of like, okay, well, I actually don't want to do Edge of 17. I'd rather do Rhiannon. So it was like from one song to another Stevie Nicks song to then my final Rhiannon choice. So I was excited to sing that song because it's one of my favorite songs. I really resonate with that song. But at the same time, I just wish I had just like a few more hours to really like finalize it and do all the choices that I wanted to do. But you live and you learn. So
Was that a tough transition going back from having your entire day scheduled out to having to make decisions for yourself?
yeah, I think that was definitely the hardest part because the schedule that they have you on Idol is like you wake up, you have to be downstairs by 6 a.m. So that means your hair and makeup ready for camera. And then it's just like go, go, go from the second you step onto the CBS television lot. So yeah, I think that was the biggest change, was that sort of schedule shift. And I think that's why I was like, I have to go perform. Like I have to put this energy somewhere because all day I'm waking up later, even if it's like 9, it's like, well, before I was waking up at 5, at 4 to warm up my voice and do my hair and makeup or so yeah, that was definitely the biggest shift.
From your Idol experience, has it inspired any writing sessions?
I'm just trying to collaborate more, and this is like my 2023 New Year's resolution, is just collaborating more and working with different artists and writing more. I did have a big surge of writing immediately following the show. And then I started writing with me and Fritz wrote a song that I posted on my Instagram. I'd written a couple songs with some of my guitar friends, some of my college friends. So yeah, just trying to do as much collaboration as possible. And I think that's where you really grow, because having someone else's brain infiltrate the art that you guys are making it's just nice. You know, you have a different outcome than what you would have expected because it's not all coming from your head. It's coming from two.
Are you still in school? Did you graduate?
No, so I dropped out. It was kind of funny because it was like right before COVID had happened and I was kind of stagnant at school. I kind of felt like the ugly duckling. I went to the Bob Cole Conservatory. So I was studying vocal jazz and vocal classical. So I was singing classical music basically every day. So
Oh.
Italian arias and all of these crazy things that were just not in my wheelhouse. And then in my free time, I'd go home and I'd write a pop tune or I'd write, you know, a rock tune. So I was kind of living these two lives in school and outside of school. And I had eventually just gotten really fed up with it. And I was like, I'm tired of doing all this work for, you know, a goal or a type of singing that I don't want to do. Like, I'd rather just go and write these songs. And I was fortunate enough to have a lot of my friends at my college and stuff still supporting me to this day. And I mean, they are like wickedly talented jazz singers and classical singers. But yeah, I kind of got stagnant, and then I was like, universe, like give me a sign. Do I quit school or do I continue? Like 3 days later, I'd gotten all those phone calls from Idol, and they were like, do you want to audition for Idol? And I was like, yes, I do. Hung up the phone, calls my school, I'm leaving. That was basically how it went. So was like, bye. And all my professors were really happy for me. They kind of knew. They were like, good, go do something else. We don't want to hold you back
Good.
anymore.
That's
You know,
funny.
but they didn't want to say that, especially when you're spending so much money going to a
Yeah.
college, getting this amazing education. They don't want to be like, you made a mistake, kid, but you know, it just wasn't my path. But I'm very fortunate to all the people that I had met there and the connections that I still have to this day, from just being there for like a year and a half. So I'm
Dude,
very lucky.
we're in the same boat. COVID, I had an epiphany. It sounds dark, but mine was in a hospital bed. So
Oh my God, yeah. So it happens in many different shapes and forms, but mine was just kind of like, you want to be on American Idol? And I was like, sure.
universe gave you a sign. So they called you right as you were trying to figure out what the hell to do. And it,
Pretty much. It was pretty weird. So whoever is up there in heaven, you know, pulling my strings and making sure everything goes right for me they're doing a good job. I'm very lucky.
times in our lives that, we could always look back and say, oh, well, we did this. Cause like you said, of course, something like college, it's about, oh, there's completion. We got to get that, we got to get that diploma or whatever. But it doesn't always matter if you don't get to the finish line, because I feel like you still learn something, you still make those connections. And so, I mean, I don't see it as wasted time. Like for me, I'm like, well, I met people, I learned things. Heck, most of it wasn't a good experience for me, but you know what? That's okay, because I learned about myself and I grew so much as a person. I mean, college is a lot of money, but I paid to grow. If that's how I look at it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of looking at it. And I think like just realizing like kind of what you said, like everything happens for a reason and you're put places for a reason. You know, I think with a lot of the contestants, we've all had conversations after the show being like, you know, it's crazy to think like how you first went into the show being like, there's no way I'm getting a golden ticket. And then you're like, I'm going to win this thing. And then you get eliminated and you're like, what did I do wrong? So it's like that constant cycle of like, you know, how did I get there? Why did I do that? And why did the outcome come out that way? And I think if you think of it more as like, okay, well, what did I experience from this? And how did I grow from this? I think for me, my idol journey was being comfortable with platforming who I am and trying to market that. Because I think that's the weirdest thing for artists and for people on American Idol. It's like you're marketing yourself. You're selling yourself. You're not selling this, you know, this bottle or this, you know, this thing. You're selling who you are as a person. So it's terrifying. So I think for me, my idol journey was being able to, you know, share myself with a huge audience of people and also open myself up to the most incredible people. Like that cast, I cannot say enough good stuff about. I just love every single one of them. And I still talk to basically everyone in the top 23 every day, or like at least every week, you know, which is great because those are lifelong friendships that I feel like I'll have forever.
Mm. I know that these are moments that you guys share, the behind the scenes, but any stories you want to share? Funny, cool, happy, sappy, anything?
One of my favorite moments, well, I mean, my hotel room kind of ended up being the like hotel room that everybody would come over after, you know, either a show or after a really long day. And we'd all like, somebody would, you know, get a bottle of whiskey or a bottle of Jack and they'd bring it over and we'd have like Coke and be talking with each other and drinking Coke and whiskey. So that was kind of like my favorite part was it was like the debriefing with all the adults. You know, you've got a bunch of people that were all different ages, you know, some of us are as young as 21 to 28. So we've got a bunch of people in my room just all talking about different experiences and jamming and singing. So those were like really my favorite moments, was like those kind of nights where everybody is extremely exhausted, but we're forcing each other to hang out with each other because we know how special those times were.
And precious, the time
And
you
precious. Yeah. I mean, you could tell, like, especially the last night, I had everyone over in my hotel room, like everybody. There was so many people in there. I was worried I was going to get a noise complaint or like my room was going to get charged. But it was just like everybody getting together and crying. I mean, there was so many tears. Because I think that was the hardest part, was like nobody really cared that you got eliminated from the show until after the fact, until you realize like, oh, okay, yeah, that was my whole life, was doing that for the last 7 months. But it's the heartbreak of leaving the people that you know you might not see, or you're probably not going to see for a while. because a lot of the friends that I had, my best friends on the show were all of the country people. So everybody that lived in like Texas or Nashville or Kentucky, those were all my friends. So me being the little LA girl, I drove back 20 minutes home and then they flew on a plane and I haven't seen them since, you know? So for me, it's like, it's amazing to see their careers blow up too. I mean, I'm talking about, so my best friends really on the show, or the people that I hung out with a lot, were Danielle Finn, Hunter Girl, Noah, Dan, and Jacob Marin. I love them all. So for Noah and Hunter, it's just been like incredible to watch their journeys just blow up right before their eyes. So it's been incredible, but at the same time, I really miss them. And I wish, you know, I could go over there and be like, hey, miss you guys. How are you? But I'm in LA. A bunch of amazing people on that show that I'm just excited to watch their careers blow up. I mean, there was so many people that like I'm fully convinced will be somebody within the next like 2 years. One thing I was really sad of was they never showed my genre round performance. I sang Distance by Emily King, and that was probably like my favorite performance that I had done on the show. So I was like, rats. But
They didn't show your duet, or did they? I can't remember.
they didn't show my duet. They showed me and Danielle in the room together because we had gotten pulled in together,
Right.
which was a heart attack and a half because we were best friends at the point and we were like, somebody's going home. They didn't explain why we were getting paired up. So we just thought, okay, one person's going home. So we'd both put it in our brains that we were the ones going and we were trying to like put on a smile. Me and Danielle didn't even really talk to each other that entire day until it came to the point where we had to be sitting in the same room because we were just like, one of us is going to be responsible for sending the other person home. That's how we felt, even though that's not in actuality how it was. We had no say in who was staying or who was going, but it was pretty gut-wrenching.
Does Danielle live close to you? Isn't she also in LA?
Yeah, she's an LA babe too, but she now goes to school in Israel. So she's doing a music career out in Israel. So pretty incredible. Miss her a lot.
Wow.
But
I bet it's nice to know though that as you travel and go to all these different states that you have like a friend almost in each one that you can connect with. And
were you like when everybody came out to LA, were you kind of like the tour girl, like let me show you like where everything is? And
oh yeah, the second I saw anyone's like story on Instagram or like Snapchat or anything of them being like LAX, I was like, okay, I'm picking you up, or like, okay, I'm coming, because I'm just very like that person. But like I said, like our relationship with everybody on the show was just so strong that any chance you get to see someone, you will take that time to see them. Like Allegra and Fritz were just down here for like not even 5 hours. They were like driving up to like Santa Barbara or San Diego immediately after the show that I'd watched them do. But I'd went and seen them and I got like 10 minutes to just like squeeze their little faces and tell them how much I love them. And then that was it. But it's like, it felt like we were together for hours because that's just what we're used to, you know? How close we got on the show really plays a part into when we see each other outside of the show, you know?
I'm wondering if you want to talk a little bit about music that you've been working on, whether it's songs that you've written or shows or anything like that, to kind of touch on what's been going on since the show.
Yeah. So I'm trying to record as many songs as possible. I've got a few that are done that will hopefully be put out in February-ish. But I have 2 songs out right now on a 2-song EP called Metamorphosis that you can go and listen to on everything. And one of those songs is like a fun kind of poppy indie song. And then the other one is a song that I basically contrived of a bunch of poems that I had written. So 2 very different songs, but I think they show a pretty good range of who I am. And then I'm also just very excited to kind of show these new songs that I've been doing, because I think my sound has changed a little bit after coming off the show and after just being around so many incredible singer-songwriters. You know, your perception changes and the way you write things also changes. So yeah, I'm really excited to put out these new songs. I've been pitching myself to management, which is so hard. But it's fun. I've met a lot of really great people. I've gotten the opportunity to go to a lot of really nice, fancy restaurants and sing for people. So it's been great. But I also just have performed all around LA. I have another performance coming up in downtown LA at Madame Siam's. I'm just going to be doing a bunch of like workshopping songs. So a bunch of the songs that I had just written like in the last couple of months, I'm going to go and play those and see how people react to them. Cause that's kind of how I figure out what song I'm going to work on next is, what people are like, hey, that one song, I really like that song. I'm like, oh, great. Okay. I'll work on that. But yeah, that's basically what I've been doing.
Hearing you say poems made me think that Mikhail should just take over. Do you want to talk about the poetry thing?
Yeah, I've been really into poetry. I write a good amount of it. And so whenever I hear like sometimes a certain line will catch my ear and just destroy my mind. Like I'll be on the phone with someone FaceTiming and they'll say something and I'll pick up my phone, go to my notes and I'll write it down. I'm like, do you know what you just said? And so I was looking through some of your TikTok videos and I saw that one of your originals, um, at the end, you had this crazy line. It said, I'll pack my heart in your suitcase before you leave. And
Yeah.
I was just like, what? How did you think of that? You know?
Yeah, I think being so you'll understand this because I think when you write poetry, it's a constant game that you play with listening to other people, picking up what they say and manipulating it to fit into whatever story you're trying to show or portray. So I think for me, a lot of my songwriting comes from like either things that people say in my day-to-day life. So I'll write down a bunch of phrases that people say or just like imagery. I think that's my main thing for all my lyrics. I really like if lyricism has imagery. I like when somebody says something and you can literally see a picture in your head. I always think that's really fun. So a lyric like I'll pack my heart in your suitcase before you leave. It's like you can see that. You can see that happening metaphorically and physically, like I'm giving all of myself to you before you up and leave me or. So it's
Mhm.
definitely a fun game that I play and a lot of my friends know around me now that, whatever kind of happens in their personal life is free game for me to write a song about. So my friends and family have been very sweet about that. But yeah, I think just drawing from books and from people around you, from imagery.
So you write from the perspective of other people's lives as well as your own.
Yeah, I think, and that's a funny thing that I found out about myself is oftentimes I start writing either a poem or a song with the mindset of it being in a perspective of somebody else or somebody else's story entirely. And then, months later or like years later, I'll listen to it and I'll be like, that was about, that situation, or that was about this, or, what had happened to me in this scenario. So it's interesting because, I feel like my subconscious is like telling the future for me, I write songs that I don't realize I need until months later. I'm like, oh, that was really, I should have listened to myself. Those words are really telling to what I was feeling. Um, but yeah, it's always fun to see what you make too. Sometimes I write something and I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, that was terrible.
It's interesting, but that same thing, months later, you could be like, wait, this actually applies in my life right now. And
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
interesting. Like I've started things and I've just let go of them, and then I found them later in the season where it's like actually really relatable, and I picked it back up again and finished it. So I think
Yeah,
that just being open to that changing is just so important as an artist.
for sure. And I think that's been like the most fun thing to watch is like kind of my personal growth, because even though the show was a couple of months ago, you know, you change so much from the start of the show to the end of the show to after the show. So it's been fun to kind of watch myself grow, as an artist and as a person.
Metamorphosis.
Metamorphosis. Yes. Yeah. And it's funny too, because the song that I sang for my first audition on the show now has so much more meaning to me. The fact that I sung it on the show and like the lyrics of that song, the first lyric I sing in that song is, for the first time in my life, I've seen my story unfold and I like the way it ends. And I sang that in, in the American Idol room. And it's so funny because I'm like, that's so fitting, looking at three of my musical icons, singing those words. It was like, wow, okay. Yeah, this is reality for me, or, this can be an achievable dream. But yeah.
whether it's a particular comment or just an overall theme or whatever,
Mhm.
do you have one thing that you can say that you've learned from each of the judges?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough when we did the press party immediately after the six of us had gotten eliminated. I was lucky enough to have a full-blown one-on-one conversation with every single one of them. And they are the most down-to-earth people. I was just so lucky to, get their wisdom from them and hear the beautiful things that they had to say about their own story and their own lives. Um, you know, Luke Bryan, he kind of said something really sweet and it made me kind of tear up. He looked at me and he was like, I'm gonna do a country accent. It's probably gonna be horrible, but he was like, I know you wanted this so bad, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. You were just so amazing. And I was like, thank you, Luke. So like they all kind of said something. And then Katy Perry, like the whole night, it was funny. She was kind of following us around. So she like photobombed a few of our pictures. And I got a photo with her and she was so sweet. She was just like, you're so cool. And like, I wish I could just get your number and we could hang out. And I'm like, girl, I know, but you're Katy Perry. So it's not gonna happen. But she was just so down to earth. And I feel like every single person had a really, really great thing to say about her. And then Lionel Richie. I mean, Lionel Richie was like just my favorite. I mean, he was my favorite judge. From the beginning of the show, he was the one that really went out of his way to come up and have conversations with me and make sure I felt valid and make sure that I knew what I was doing was important. So I think he was kind of my biggest supporter in terms of the judges. And yeah, the things that he said to me at that press party were just so enlightening and so sweet. He was just telling me about his come up with the Commodores and how difficult that was and how he had to navigate that and emotionally navigate that and how I should take parts of that and try to implement them into my life and using different techniques that he did and breathing stuff. He just is a man beyond his years. So I was very lucky to even have a conversation with him.
I wonder what the vibe was like because I've talked to Cameron, I've talked to Cadence, the contestants, including yourself, who were sent home that night. That was a really big cut. And then to have a party featuring six people that went home, it was an interesting choice because for you guys, I'm imagining that it was just an interesting feeling, a lot of emotions, you know?
I was a mess. I was crying my eyes out. I was just so sad to be leaving all my friends and it was annoying too because it's the same ideology of like if I was getting on a plane the next morning, it would feel more like a finite end. But the fact that like even after the show, like I went and hung out with them. I like went and got dinner with them. The people that were still on the show. So it's like it was annoying because it was like I'm still in the vicinity of everything that's going on. It's not like I get to go back home to
Right.
Washington where there is no American Idol for miles and miles and miles, where for me it was a whopping 20 minutes away, you know.
Mm.
But it was really fun. I was so lucky to have that press party too after because I think for a lot of people that hot cold turkey was really difficult for them to just kind of maneuver going from having a completely booked schedule to absolutely nothing. For me, I at least got that night to hang out with everybody, have kind of like a party powwow of like, congrats to the people that made it and congrats to the ones that made it this far, So it was a really great atmosphere. Everyone was really happy and I got a lot of great hugs from all my friends. So yeah, it was really great. But definitely a hard night. Leaving Hunter Girl was like the hardest. I couldn't even look at her for the longest time. Every time I did, I would just start crying and she would too. She was like, stay away from me. And I was like, I know, stay away from me. And then Noah too. Oh my gosh. I just like couldn't be around any of them. Noah, Dan, and Hunter, I was like, stay away from me. Don't come near me.
Oh,
Yeah. But
man, I can't imagine thinking back on it. I'm sure like reflecting on it, it probably does feel like yesterday to have the imagery in your mind of what it was like. Have you written any songs specifically about American Idol and what you experienced?
I've written songs about people from American Idol, but not necessarily the experience of American Idol. Not like And I probably could, but I think it wouldn't necessarily be a song about American Idol rather than the feeling or the, kind of uncomfortableness that I had felt, putting myself out of my comfort zone. Rather than being like, I was in a room with Katy Perry and Lionel, that'd be kind of weird.
Well, that's
But
just that. I mean, that's exactly what I was
that's
thinking. The feelings of being with those
okay.
people and
Yeah. So yeah, I haven't yet, but I probably will. I don't know. I'm not sure. I usually kind of just let things come. So I write songs about whatever comes. I don't usually sit there and go, what do I want to write a song about today? It's usually just like, no, I already have an idea forming.
Do you create like a space or time to like let that come out, or do you just stop whatever you're doing in the moment and just when it comes to you, write it down?
Yeah, that's the blessing and the curse of being a songwriter is you really don't have a choice. If you start writing a song in your head, whatever somebody is talking to you about, it's not really going to matter because you're just like da 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 in your head. So yeah, for me it's been like a constant thing of somebody says something that sparks an interest or sparks some inspiration, and I'm like, okay, wait, give me 2 seconds. I need to like write down this idea and then sing this into my phone as like a voice memo because I have this one melody that I think is cool or whatever. So yeah, it's a never ending game of writing stuff and playing with new sounds. And yeah.
but it's a fun game to play. It's a fun life, the best
Oh
life.
yeah, it's the best. I would not have it any other way. It's my favorite game.
Mikhail, any final thoughts, questions, concerns? I like to say that even though we shouldn't have concerns.
Concerns.
It's so fun.
I'm not concerned at all. I definitely want to see you live sometime when I'm down there
You
in LA.
should. You absolutely
Me
should.
too.
And I will. But yeah, you're amazing. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're on the right path for sure.
Me too. I'm a lot farther from California, but I would love to see you live. And
Come down anyway. Come down anyway. California's got enough room. Just don't bring your car.
yeah, I remember I've only been to LA once, and I remember my families were overpackers, so we get there and the rental car is too small, and I'm starving, and I'm like, okay. Of course, I was like, I'm such a touristy. I'm like, the first thing we got to do is get In-N-Out burger. So
Of
we gotta wait an hour to get another rental car because the rental car is too small, and then we get In-N-Out burger, and it's what 9 o'clock on a Monday, and the line's 45 minutes. So then I finally get my cheeseburger. I record the Snapchat video so I can tell all my friends how it actually is.
Yep,
It
of
was
course.
it was pretty good, and I gotta say, I think my favorite thing was the Hollywood Hills. It was just cool to see the sign, go for the hike. And I also saw CBS Studios because I wanted to cross that off the list. I didn't have to go inside. I'm like, that's where they film American Idol. I am driving past CBS.
Yeah, you just need to look at it. Yeah, there's a lot of monumental places like that in LA. I actually drove Hunter and Dan and Jacob up to the Hollywood sign one night, and I took a bunch of pics with them because I was like, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to get to see the Hollywood sign. So, at 10 o'clock at night, I'll take you guys over there. Why not? So I drove them all the way up there, and they got their little pictures in front of it. So it was really fun. But yeah, it was definitely cool to be like the tour guide and be like, come on, kiddos, let me show you LA.
Are you an American Horror Story fan?
Sort of. So my dad's a local 44 prop maker. So he works on like a bunch of those shows. And yeah, sometimes I kind of get the behind the scenes, but I do like American Horror Story. Some of them are a little too like gruesome for me.
Yeah.
They do the like torture thing. But yeah, they're fun to watch and pretty spooky.
Well, because we saw the Murder House, the first season. Seeing the location in person is like a crazy experience. You don't feel like it's what it is on the TV.
Yep. It's pretty sad now too, because of how many people were going and visiting that house, you can't even see it anymore. They've got like huge, like 13-foot tall fences that they've just covered with like this green like tarp. So you can't see the house like at all. You can see the roof, but that's it. And people were vandalizing it. People were like throwing baseballs in the windows.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
But
go ahead.
you got to see it, so
Yeah, I was there in 2021, so I guess I just barely made it there in time.
Yeah, as of recent, I think like a few people like spray painted it or like threw baseballs in the windows, and then they were like, all right, this is it. That's now we're done. So
Kind of ironic because the very first scene of the series was two boys throwing rocks and stones and stuff at the house. So, I
I
mean,
think that's why people do it. They like make TikToks of them like pretending to be
yeah. Just in general, people vandalize locations, and it's like, especially if people actually live there, it's like you have to have respect. Please, just if you love a location, visit it safely and kindly. There's no need to abuse it. Like,
Yeah. And there's so many houses like that that are like iconic for so many different reasons. And you can't help but wonder like how the neighbors feel just having this drive through of cars just constantly on their block. It's got to be pretty frustrating, but you know.
what about seeing the Idol set? I mean, I don't know how much you watched it, but what was it like to see that in person?
I like didn't really watch Idol that much as a kid. I was never really into like the singing competition shows. The craziest thing for Idol for me was listening like when they give you your like, super nice expensive in-ears. And we did our first run through like sitting on the stage in those spots, and all you heard was the like the opening Oz, and all of the contestants like everybody kind of like looked around and was like, did you guys hear that? That was crazy. That was the first time we had heard the like in our
The
head.
theme
So it was,
song?
yeah, it was insane. Like you don't think you would feel that way, but like when you're sitting there looking at the like stage and then you hear the theme song and then Ryan Seacrest is up there and like, his skinny jeans and Uggs, you're like, oh my God, I'm really doing the thing,
Wow.
So it was cool. It was cool.
And gosh, well, Sage, any final thoughts from you? Anything that you want to mention or talk about music wise, stuff coming up for you?
Um, well, first I just want to thank everyone for, watching the show and loving all the contestants and appreciating us. Second, yeah, I am going to have a bunch of music coming out. So if you want to hear any of the fun new stuff that I've been writing outside of Idol, hopefully it'll be coming out in the next couple months here. And then follow me on Instagram at Sage Music with 2 underscores. You can see all my live performance schedules, and hopefully I'll have some cool performances coming up. I haven't finalized them yet, but hopefully there'll be some really cool things coming up on my Instagram. So stay tuned if you care.
Very cool. Well, I'm so excited for everything that's coming up for you this year, Sage. Mikhail, if you want to plug your socials, talk about things that are on your account, whatever you want, take it away.
Wait, I want to
Yeah,
follow you.
sure. Awesome. Yeah, my Instagram is MIKAE1MUSIC. I could have just said music, but I just spelled it out. Yeah, sometimes I post poetry on there. I post singing videos on there. Sometimes I post my food. I
Oh,
really post myself. I'm just trying to put myself out there. And yeah, I like to share my creativity and just who I am as a person with people. Same on TikTok, same on Snapchat. It's all the same.
Well, guys, if you want to follow us on Instagram, you can do so at Idle Unaired Podcast. Make sure that you hit that subscribe or follow button wherever you're listening or watching. Thank you guys so much. And Sage, thank you so much for being an aired exception on American Idol Unaired.
thank you guys. I really appreciate it.